So, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I'm not the biggest fan of Bethesda RPGs. Granted, I haven't played many of them, mostly the newer Elder Scrolls games and even the original Elder Scrolls Arena, funny enough. Maybe it's the stiff character animations, the glitches, or the whole it just works mentality that Bethesda and Todd Howard generally have, but their games haven't impacted me much. I know they have their fans, but I usually play RPGs with more polish and care than this. However, there is one game that, despite its flaws, became one of my favorite games of all time, and that game is The Elder Scrolls IV: Oblivion. But why is that? Well, I first got into this game in early 2017, when The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was right around the corner. And I was getting very antsy about getting it, being a broke 15-year-old then. So I had to keep myself distracted somehow. Luckily, one of the games my brother gifted me on Steam when he built me my first PC was Oblivion. So I decided to give it a shot, and it left me captivated. I think that was the first time I was truly addicted to a video game in my life. Sure, the graphics have aged worse than Ralph Breaks the Internet, but I didn't care. The world and quests themselves were more than enough to keep me hooked the whole way through. That said, I haven't beaten the main quest since then, and have played far more games like it since. So, how would it hold up all these years later? To answer that, I'll separate this video into 3 parts: the good, the bad, and the funny. This game may not be perfect by any means, but I still love it all the same. With that said, I'm Aaron the Wolf, and this is The Elder Scrolls IV: Oblivion, a mess that I love. Starting with the good, Oblivion has a rock-solid main quest. To recap for the uninitiated, the game takes place in Cyrodiil, a province of Tamriel where the series takes place. Uriel Septim VII has been the ruler of Cyrodiil for 65 years, and has had repeating dreams of the demonic realm Oblivion invading Tamriel, along with visions of the player. Then one day, all of his sons have been assassinated by a mysterious cult known as the Mythic Dawn. The Emperor's bodyguards, soldiers from the Blades, attempt to sneak the Emperor through a secret passage, in which the entrance just happens to be inside your cell. This is where you come in. You join the Emperor and his Blades as they traverse the dungeons, while along the way, you create your character and class. Eventually, you and the Emperor reach a dead end, thus before he is assassinated, he gives you the Amulet of Kings, a powerful artifact that the Septims have used to light the fires that protect the kingdom against the Daedra, which are essentially demons from hell, and that only those of the royal bloodline can wear. He tells you to take it to a man named Joffrey, who knows of his last son, Martin. As the game goes on, you find Martin in the destroyed city of Kvatch, which has been overrun by Daedra, and go on this long quest to find a way to close shut the jaws of Oblivion. That is a lot of information to take in all at once, and I don't want to get too into the lore, but overall the main quest has a good way of keeping you invested the whole way through. But enough about the story. What is it about the actual gameplay itself that genuinely makes it fun to play? Well, for several reasons. Number 1, the class system. Oblivion allows you to choose one of many classes that focus on different skills. Of course, you have the standard classes like Knight, Mage, and Archer, which focus on swords and armor, and archery respectively. But there's also more specific classes to choose from. Do you want to use both axes and magic? Boom, Battle Mage. You want to have archery skills and be able to sneak around and steal things? Boom, Thief. You want to just say, forget weapons, I only need my fisticuffs to kill people. Boom, Monk. This statement can be applied to the game as a whole, but there are just so many ways to play it. If there's a specific class you want to play, it likely exists in Oblivion, and in case it doesn't, you could just create that class. This is one of the coolest aspects of any fantasy RPG. Choosing which skills you want to focus on to fit your playstyle is one of the many reasons this game is so replayable. And with that, I created Crunch, the Assassin Argonian. But don't laugh at him, he hasn't been the same since Banjo hit him with a plane in Diddy Kong Racing. Number 2, the soundtrack. One of the most important factors in enjoying any game for me is the soundtrack, and Oblivion delivers on all fronts in that regard. We have composer Jeremy Soule to thank for the soundtrack, with a pretty interesting backstory behind it. You see, in the 2000s, Jeremy was in a severe car accident and almost died. That caused him to realize that life is precious, and that feeling was what drove him to compose Oblivion's soundtrack the way he did. Oblivion's soundtrack manages to find the right balance between a grand, epic quest, while also allowing the player to breathe between battles while exploring Cyrodiil. It's one of my favorite video game soundtracks of all time, so much so that it's been my wake-up alarm for the past 5 years. I mean, hey, it's a more than pleasant soundtrack to wake up to at least. And number 3, the quests. As good as the main story can be sometimes, there are just so many memorable side quests present throughout the entire game. Here are some of my favorites in question. An unexpected voyage. You find a boat motel on the Imperial City's waterfront and stay the night only to wake up and realize the ship's been taken over by bandits. You deal with the bandits appropriately and find out that the bandits took over because the owner, Ormil, fabricated a legend of a golden statuette hidden in the ship to bring more customers. There isn't really a whole lot to this one. I just think the premise and the reason that these bandits took over the ship is just kinda hilarious. The arena. Admittedly, this quest is just a gauntlet of battles one after the other, but I also have a soft spot for it. Working your way up the ranks to become the Grand Champion is just really satisfying, even if you do have to encounter the most annoying NPC with the Adoring Fan. Here he is, the Adoring Fan.
Wow, you're the Grand Champion. I saw your fight against the Grey Prince. You're the best. Can I follow you around? I won't get in the way.
I wonder what happens when I do this. The Sheogorath Daedric quest. There are a number of Daedric quests present throughout the game, but the most entertaining one is definitely Sheogorath's quest. The dude is so weird and entertaining that he got his own DLC for the game. Sheogorath wants you to cause some mischief by going to a small town and fulfilling their doomsday prophecy. You summon rats by putting cheese in a cooking pot, put the rat poison in the sheep's feed, which causes them to die, and finally watch as fiery dogs rain from the sky, and the whole village runs around screaming like little children. Yep, that's Sheogorath for you. But the best quest in the whole game goes to the Dark Brotherhood. After you kill someone in cold blood, when you go to sleep you will be greeted by Lucien Lachance of the Dark Brotherhood, who will task you with another murder so that you may join their guild. What follows is a series of assassinations you must complete, as well as an ongoing storyline of a rat present in the Dark Brotherhood that you must find and kill. The best part of this quest is definitely the mission where you must go to a party and kill everyone there without them seeing you. Why hello there, old lady. I'm an assassin hired to kill you.
You're a funny one.
This is going to be pretty easy, isn't it? Yes, it is in fact easy because there is a significant glitch with this quest. As long as you one-shot the guest with any melee weapon, nobody will ever be able to detect you. With that in mind, prepare for hilarity.
It's not safe to be alone. I certainly don't want to be the third victim.
You and I are the only ones left, but we're not alone in this house. That killer is in here with us hiding. But where?
So yeah, those are just some of the parts that I genuinely love about this game. That said, even I have to admit the game has a lot of problems. So why don't we go ahead and get into... One of the biggest problems with Oblivion is that the leveling system is, for lack of a better term, fucked up. Unlike any other RPG, where the more you level up, the stronger and more capable you get, Oblivion's leveling system does the exact opposite. As you level up more, the weaker enemies that you've been fighting throughout the game will be replaced with much harder variants of the same enemies. Essentially, if you don't efficiently level up, your character ends up feeling weaker than you were at the start of the game. Thus, the game becomes complete bullshit to play, since enemies can just two-shot you most of the time. If you want more information on it, check out FETV's video on the subject. He can explain it better than I can. But in short, the leveling system is fucked, and there's a good reason it was changed in Skyrim. The visual fidelity. Okay, as a whole, Oblivion, visually speaking, is not that great. I mean, the environments themselves look perfectly fine for 2006, but the character models kinda look like ass. Some people are gonna come at me like, oh, don't be so judgmental, Ron. This was 2006. This was as good as it got back then. No. You know what else came out in the year 2006? Zelda Twilight Princess, Gears of War, and Call of Duty 3. Sure, those three were major budget titles from Nintendo, Microsoft, and Activision. That said, I can't find any information online on Oblivion's budget, but even then, considering indie games nowadays can look just as great as AAA titles, I find how much money Bethesda had to be irrelevant. Too many of the NPCs' heads look like a damn potato, but that's not what bothers me the most about the visual fidelity. The lighting can be just terrible when it doesn't work. 90% of the time, it works perfectly fine, and the other 10% causes moments where the character's lighting is either incredibly overexposed or underexposed. I mean, look at this! This looks terrible! Voice acting. Okay, so before I get into it, there are some voice performances I genuinely love in this game. There's Sir Patrick Stewart as Emperor Uriel Septim, as well as Sean Bean as his son, Martin Septim. Both actors give great performances as their respective characters. I also want to give Wes Johnson his credit because his voice is one of the most iconic in Elder Scrolls history. Yes, he is the Imperial Guard, and he's hilariously over the top in that role.
Stop! You violated the law. Pay the court a fine or serve your sentence. Your stolen goods are now forfeit.
But he's also the arena announcer.
Good people of the Imperial City, welcome to the arena.
Lucien Lachance of the Dark Brotherhood.
You sleep rather soundly for a murderer. That's good. You'll need a clear conscience for what I'm about to propose.
And even Shea Gorath.
I could turn you into a goat, or a puddle, or a bad idea. I could make you eat your own fingers, or fall in love with a cloud.
He's one of the best voice actors in this game, bar none. But the rest of the cast leaves a lot to be desired. One of the reasons the voice acting isn't perfect is that there are only 18 people on the entire cast list, and one of those people is Todd Howard. For a game of this size, that's not a lot. I'm sure it was a massive undertaking for these actors to have to voice dozens, even hundreds of NPCs, but as you soon see, it causes some problems. Primarily, two NPCs with the same voice actor will end up talking to each other, and it's just as hilarious as it sounds.
What if the Daedra we've seen are only the beginning? I think we should prepare for the worst. Yes. Yes, I see your point.
Even though I find the situation funny, it still takes me out of the experience when two different characters have the same voice as each other. It just makes the final product feel rushed. But nothing brings me more dread in this game than having to go through the goddamn Oblivion gates. The first time you see one, it is admittedly pretty cool. The sky turns a hellish red and you see this giant portal standing right outside the gates of Kvatch. And as you step inside, you're taken to another world filled with scamps and other demonic creatures inside. But as the game goes on, that feeling of intrigue quickly diminishes. You will end up having to go through more and more Oblivion gates as the main story goes on, and once you go through one of them, you've basically seen all of them. Now, that wouldn't be so bad if it weren't for one specific quest that makes it completely miserable. Allies for Bruma. Joffrey wants us to gather allies from other factions in order to prepare for the inevitable attack on Bruma. Here is how every one of these quests go. You arrive at a faction, seek the count of said faction, ask for aid, and hear them say, "Oh no, I can't do that. I've got my own problems to worry about. There's an Oblivion gate outside." So you go through the Oblivion gate, spend 20 minutes each time running around the bland, repetitive map, getting to the top of the tower, disable the gate, and only then will that one single faction give you some of their soldiers. And you have to do this 6 times. Do you have any idea how fucking boring traveling through Oblivion gets after the second time? There's no change of scenery or enemies, it's just the same old boring shit every time. The only saving grace of this quest is the fact that it's technically optional. But I did all 6 Oblivion gates for this video, and what do you get? You get 3 extra soldiers for every Oblivion gate. That's it, that's all you get. Fuck you, Oblivion gates. So this last point isn't as important, but I feel it's worth pointing out. And anybody who's played Oblivion knows what I'm talking about. The horse armor. Those who aren't in the know will be like, what? It's just horse armor. But you don't understand. You know how every AAA game has the worst fucking microtransactions ever, causing an inescapable hellscape that is modern AAA gaming? It all started with this fucking armor. Some asshole at Microsoft thought it would be a good idea to charge Microsoft points, God, remember when those were a thing, for a set of armor for your horse. It is genuinely chilling seeing this image, knowing what it spawned. The seed that would create the destroyer of modern gaming. Let's try and forget about the sad future we live in by finally discussing the funny. When it comes to the funny, I first must acknowledge when the game tries to be intentionally funny. This includes dialogue, certain quests, or pretty much everything about Sheogorath. This game can be funny when it's trying to be. With that said, most of the humor is from laughing at the game, not with it. The biggest reason for this is because of the NPC AI. Bethesda developed their own system, Radiant AI, that would allow the NPCs to walk around, follow a schedule, and even make decisions. This was seen as very revolutionary at the time, but since it was one of the first games to do it, naturally, it's not perfect. Since they only had a handful of people to develop the game, it wasn't as polished as it could have been. With that said, I love this aspect about the game. All of those videos of Oblivion NPCs being themselves, hysterical. It's one of those aspects I can't really explain why it's funny. It'd be best to just show you. Some of these are from my own footage, while others are videos I found online. Enjoy.
Take that! Take that! Oh. Ha!
Farewell.
May you rest in peace.
I love dogs. Doesn't everyone? Bye.
I don't know you, and I don't care to know you. I don't know you, and
Let's
I
hear
don't
it.
care to know you.
Did you?
I don't know you, and I don't care to know
What's
you.
this about?
Vi.
I could go on and on about what I like or dislike about Oblivion, but at the end of the day, I just wanted to talk about this game in all its glory. It may not be the most polished, immersive, or well-balanced RPG of all time, but I still love it, warts and all. Like I said before, there's just so much to do in this game that I simply can't talk about it all in one video. There are still other aspects I've yet to mention, like the Shivering Isles DLC, the Knights of the Nine DLC, the Fighters, Mages, and Thieves Guild questlines, and a whole bunch of other things. I'd love to talk about them, but A, I need to finish this video eventually, and B, my external drive can't take much more footage right now. So in conclusion, Oblivion is a glitchy, unpolished, poorly designed game, and just not perfect by any means. But I wouldn't have it any other way. It's one of my favorite games of all time, and I always look forward to replaying it with a new build. I'm Aaron the Wolf, and by the 9 Divines, stay on the roads, and stay strong, and live life. And so, with the aid of Crunch, Martin Septim was able to banish Mehrunes Dagon to the realm of Oblivion. Even though Crunch did most of the work, Martin was proclaimed the hero of Cyrodiil, while the city was like, here Crunch, you can have this cool piece of armor we found. Ever since the destruction of the Dark Brotherhood, however, Crunch's life became meaningless. He spent his last days drinking skooma and not much else. The day he died, he ran around attacking the people of Cyrodiil, filled with rage over his feelings of being lost, in which the Imperial Guards had to put him down for good. Rest in peace, Crunch. Rest in peace.